Through our Indigenous Environmental Network, we've been throughout the world talking to our Indigenous brothers and sisters. And in Alaska, with the melting of the permafrost, with the temperatures warming, and the melting of the sea ice that has completely devastated their ecosystem, to where we have certain knowledges that we're able to adapt, but we should not be put into a position of forced adaptation or forced change. And I see firsthand the effects of the environment when land territories are being eroded away from the melting sea ice and the oceans coming in, to where you have to relocate your whole village. And it's not as easy as it was like 100 years ago or 200, 300 years ago, because there has been the settlement of immigrants who have come in from Europe, for an example, to my territories, and they have other land where they're living. So an indigenous village just can't lift up and move to another location. There are other populations living there now. I'm hearing that they're really concerned in the small island states with the rising sea levels, and that's going to escalate. That's already predicted. Where did these large populations of indigenous peoples from the Pacific, where did they move to? That's a very big issue that involves a political decision. We're seeing more floods and more hurricanes and more droughts, where people are being forced to relocate. People are being forced to relocate and then resettle in other areas. It's not like it was 500 years ago. I mean, it's hard to pick up a whole village of people and move to another area without it getting political. So these are issues that we're very concerned about, and the right to practice our culture. Where I come from, we have certain plants and certain natural materials that are no longer available. We have to go, 2 days travel or even 1 day travel to go get these materials. The moose population, which is one of our animals that sustains our people, are moving north because of the temperature warming. So a lot of the habitat that we depend on for subsistence isn't there anymore. In Alaska and remote areas, they don't have a grocery store to go to. They depend on the environment. So when the environment and the ecosystem and the habitat is being affected by climate change to where they may perish, that affects our indigenous people and becomes a food sovereignty issue, a food security issue. In Africa, I was really alarmed at the concerns with water and water rights and the possible war around water. If the predictions here in Africa are true, there's going to be less water because of a changing climate, because of global warming. And that's why it's going to be a form of life and death. And we're telling the world leaders now that if they don't take action, that there will be deaths of indigenous peoples. And we're even seeing that affecting non-indigenous peoples in Europe, where there are warming events which has devastated whole populations of people, especially our elders in these heat islands and in the cities. Where there's surges and blackouts and electricity when everyone's turning on their air conditioners in New York City, and because of the heat wave that's coming through, and the most vulnerable, the people who have poor health, our elders are affected by that. So it's affecting all people. Again, the most vulnerable are those people in those remote areas of the world that depend on food system, natural systems. We're already fighting for our water rights in different parts of the world. But now we're having to compete for water with other populations. And that's why we wonder why the United Nations is hesitating from recognizing water as a human right. So food security, the price of food may be going up as the price of oil goes up. So who's going to be able to provide food for their families in the future? And, if we have this negative effect with the loss of of animal species and fish. We're already depleting the fish in the oceans. And, so our forecast as indigenous people is that, yes, we will survive. But we shouldn't have to go through all these difficulties as well as all people of the world. We should not be put in that position. And that's why we're here to lift up our voice, telling these world leaders to make a commitment to our second round of the Kyoto Protocol, because that's the only international legally binding agreement that will hold the polluters accountable. And let's wait till another day then for the economies in transition to make a commitment. They need funding to help them to make that transition. A lot of the industrialized countries are in a better position. And so this is a climate equity issue and climate debt issue. So there's layers of these issues that we need to be tuned into, and we'll do everything we can here to make this a strong COP17. But one of the negotiators this morning that met with our indigenous peoples in our caucus said this is going to be a lifetime venture. The commitments to mitigate climate change and to adapt is going to be a lifetime commitment, and that we should start training our youth, our children, because they're going to have to pick up the responsibilities in 2050 when that review of whether or not we have achieved 40%, 50%, 100% reduction in emissions targets. It's the youth who are here now that will be elders. They're going to be in their 60s. And they're going to say whether or not the results of these COP decisions were successful or not. I hope it is.